But just the start of the news review right here today, and we're pleased to bring you the guest that we have lined up for this morning. That is Maxwell Lukuto. He is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong, and he joins the conversation. Max, good morning. Yo. So interesting times, because in recent days, I've had this very week, Samuel Okudzeto Blacka, who is the Member of Parliament for North Tong, joined me in the studio. He has been able to raise funds from different quarters with some support from his own pocket to put up 2 facilities to help those who were affected by the dam spillage. I'm talking about the Akosombo Dam spillage. But I'd like to find out from you, since you're just next door, what is the state of your people in South Tong, and what more can be done to alleviate their plight? I think we could start off from there.
Yeah, sure. So good morning again. Good morning to my constituents and to everybody who is listening to us. Happy Friday to you all, and happy Valentine's Day to some of you who I have not met earlier. Like you said...
Well, thank you, and same to you.
Yeah, thank you. I was at a commissioning program where the Chief Imam, Sheikh Sharbutu himself, was there, the former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, that's the incoming President, and then the running mate, Jane Nana Okupa, in the 2020 elections. It was so pleasant to see what North Tong, especially under the leadership of Samuel Blacka, has done. We were all full of praise for his sterling performance as a leader, rallying support from all angles, and putting about 6 different blocks for these people who have been taken over by the spillage. Of course, there is a future plan of wanting to turn that into a district nursing training center if the people, after everything, have been able to relocate to their individual homes. Of course, this is a camping situation where bunker beds have been provided in the dormitories. There are some shared kitchens, shared TV rooms, and other facilities. So, of course, it will not be the normal lifestyle for people who want to take shelter in those facilities. After a while, they may want to live back to their individual homes. That is if they are able to put up the structures together back where they left. But as a temporary measure, I think it's a human job done by Sami, and we should all praise him for the good work he's done. Back in my constituency, yes, we would not be able to put up anything of that nature. Hello?
Yes, Maxwell, go ahead.
Yeah, so back in my constituency, we would not be able to put anything like that together. Simply because of the difference in the situations that we had. Mepe was actually the epicenter of all the spillage that happens, simply also because of their topography. What I mean by topography is that they have an undulating ground level. Like there are a lot of creeks interspersed with the land in Mepe. And because for a long time, spillage of flood has not taken over those creeks, they became quite comfortable and had to build on some of those creeks. So you go to Mepe, you see that there are a lot of naturally low-lying areas. And so when it happens, all those places were taken over. So apparently, they had a lot more of homes that were taken over completely by the flood. Unlike our place, it's only Sokwe that experienced the extent of that. Of course, Amutinu and the Agbebe areas also experienced that, and some marked homes succumbed to the flood. But apparently, they were able to move to higher grounds around same places, and so they have been able to shelter themselves with family and friends. And so after the flood has receded, most of the people have gone back to their homes. And so the situation we have here is not as dire as we do have in Mepe.
Okay, so there was a difference, which is why the effort has not been same in South Tong, because obviously North Tong was affected more. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but of course, people would appreciate if we are also able to put some things together. But of course, these are two different individuals who are leaders, and they have their capabilities and abilities differently. And so he's been able to put up that stellar performance to do what he's done. Let's not take away the credit from him. He's done so well. That's my point.
All right, that's a good point to make, and of course, you are not even the member of parliament yet, but you've also been playing your role in that. Right before we get into the papers, there are a lot of topical matters that have taken the country by storm. Since the last interaction, hold for me, Maxwell. Since the last time we spoke, I'm going to leave you in about a minute and a half to elaborate on any one you'd like to talk about briefly before we get into the newspapers. So back to you.
Yeah, sure. So like I was saying that, like you try to put across, yes, as an individual, as a parliamentary candidate, I've also done my bit in trying to sort out those people who in one way or the other had to be supported. Of course, as I speak, there were some wooden bridges in some of the communities, especially Jobove, that because of the spillage, the wooden bridge they have had stayed under the water for quite some time, and so the planks that were used in trying in doing the bridge have also gotten rotten. I am still putting that together for them. Maybe in some few days' time, that bridge will be ready for us to go and commission and give to them so that they can also continue to do their economic activities. That's what I just wanted to chip in. That as a parliamentary candidate, I'm just not sitting down, even though I don't have the full support or I am not in the circles recognized to be the leader where people would want to channel resources and other things through me. In my small way, I try to also support these communities in one way or the other. And so as I speak, that construction is ongoing, and I'm sure that in some few days I will go and commission that to the people of the government.
All right. So the point I was making was just to make people aware that you are not the member of parliament. So it would not appear that, oh, Samuel Okudzeto Blacka had done this in North Tone and you had done nothing. It was just to clarify that you are not even in parliament yet. You are not the parliamentarian yet. Of course, I know that you've been doing a few things. So anything you'd like to reflect on briefly in about a minute before we get in? If not, then we can get straight into the papers.
Let's get into the papers.
All right. So the Daily Graphic this morning says forest reclamation, and it kicks off. That's what it says. Then there's Hohoi, home of vast tourism potential. Ghana signs convention to root out genocide and international crime. And Koforidua to host 67th Independence Day celebration. All right, then on the back page, we have increased funding for school feeding program. That's PSG to government, the Pediatric Society of Ghana. We'll be getting into that. And then Bayfikrom Dam at critically low level. What is happening? I'll bring you details of that. In fact, I'm going to start from there. So the irrigation dam at Bayfikrom near Mankasim in the central region, which also supplies the Ghana Water Company treatment plant as an alternative source of water, is at a critically low level. Now, the dam, initially built in 1974 for irrigation and later as a source for the Bayfikrom waterworks, has a water level of 1 meter. The dam, at full capacity, holds water up to 6 meters and has an acceptable minimum level of 3 meters. So, mind you, the capacity is 6 meters, and then the acceptable minimum level is 3. Now it's at 1 meter, so 2 meters more needed by way of water. Now, the Central Regional Manager of the Ghana Irrigation Development Authority, Ebenezer Kwame, said at 0.86 meters, it's not even at 1, 0.86 meters, the water level would be at its dead stock where it cannot be pumped at all. That is if it gets there from 1. Now, at that level, it would be difficult to take in water for treatment, he stated. The situation has led to water shortages in communities along the irrigation dam at Bayfikrom near Mankasim in the central region. Officials of the Ghana Water Company and the GDA are deliberating on effective ways of saving the dam, which is now at a critically low level. And so with dams, it is interesting. We were just talking about the Akosombo Dam spillage. It's interesting because if it's too high, you have to let go of some of the water, else the dam could, seed, it could bulge, or it could break. There could be a breach. Or if it's too low too, it can't perform, and then everything would go bonkers. But then the Pediatric Society of Ghana has called on the government to increase the funding for the school feeding program. as an essential step in combating malnutrition among students. Now, this was contained in a communique issued that has just ended annual general and scientific meeting in Ho. The communique is signed jointly by the president of the PSG, Dr. Hilda Mantibia Boy, and the general secretary, Dr. Gabriel Obinkranting, commended the government for its steps over the years to address the problem of malnutrition in all its forms in the country. It mentioned the National Nutrition Policy, the school feeding program, and Planting for Food and Jobs as moves with the potential of curbing food insecurity and promoting good nutrition among children. However, the communique maintained it was necessary to expand the school feeding program to benefit other schools to ensure more children enjoyed nutritious meals to meet the minimum daily requirements for all nutrients. And here's where it gets tricky. And I don't even need to read from here. I don't know whether they capture that information. But children between certain early ages, I believe up to about 4, 5, thereabouts, it's critical that they get the right nutrition, else things like cretinism and others could set in. And guess what that does? It impacts their ability to think. It impacts the development of their brain, which means if their brains don't develop properly, we have basically sacrificed them on the altar of poor planning and poor leadership. Because these same people will be competing with those people from Norway, from Finland, from the US, from the UK and other parts of the world in a global village for the same jobs in future. These are the ones who likely will be our leaders who will have to think for the country. And so basically what we've done is we've cut them at the knees and left them. That's how problematic this is. It reminds me of the school feeding program when it was started under the Kufuor administration and how far we've fallen. As for school feeding, the things we've seen and shown you on TV, I don't even want to go back. You see soup and you wonder whether it's not water with a layer of oil. So it's been pretty problematic. And just to chip in, Maxwell, they mentioned Planting for Food and Jobs. Back at Bishop Herman, back then, I mean, all of us from Accra, Tema and other places, weeding, and we had farms, yam, maize and other things. We cultivated them. Today, the entire system has changed, and part of the problem is because not too many schools are doing that anymore. I don't know. Your take.
Yeah, thank you so much. So on the issue of the dam, constructed since 1974 near Mankasim, and critically we are at 1 meter level now instead of 6 meters. It's unfortunate.
The minimum is 3 meters. So even if they get to 3 meters, it's acceptable.
Yeah, sure. So that's what I mean, that between 6 and 3, and now we are at 1. And so, you see, I am not too sure of the engineering that went into the construction of the dam, though, but generally speaking, these are done to be able to give us clean water at some level that can be pumped and then distilled or whichever form, and then pumped into our taps for our use. Unfortunately, because of human activities by the day, when you have a water body, you have some distance off the river. We call it the buffer, within which no construction can happen, even farming cannot happen, because the more you try to do human activities along the banks of the river, more soil or particles of soil would drift into the water body and begin to make it like choked. And so usually you don't have a lot of human activities to be done along. But now we build so much into even the river itself. And west of all the Galamsey situation we are experiencing these days, is making it such that people will intentionally go and block the source of this river. They will go and divert it, and the river is not able to flow naturally into the dam area for the level to be up and pumped into the system for use. And so, as long as we encourage some of these human activities, we are going to be experiencing these things. And water is life. If we continue to experience these things, we may end up importing water from our neighbors to be able to drink, and that will be very critical for us. And so those CEOs, those individuals who are fighting against the continual Galamsey activities, I think that we need to strengthen them and advise ourselves. People are taking all of us to ransom because of the little money they will make into their individual pocket, and they don't care what happens to us. Like you said earlier, if it's too much, it's spilled and people are affected. If it's too low, we don't have water to drink. And it looks like we don't have policy directing the things we do in Ghana. At one time we are low, at the other time we are too much, and we are complaining. And so we need to zoom into action. The Ghana Water Company Limited, the ministry that is responsible, should zoom into action and make sure that we save some of these national assets and not allow the set for monetary gains to overshadow our thinking and allow us to do these things to ourselves. At the end of the day, it comes back to affect all of us. And the earlier we look at these things, the better. About the school feeding program, we have all seen pictures. We've all seen the reality of what our kids are being fed with. And it's unfortunate that you speak about it and people are not able to think around it. I'm not sure whether they are still feeding them with a 0.9 CD or 1 CD. At the point, they wanted it increased to 2 CDs and they never got it. I'm not too sure whether they got it. But if you are feeding somebody with 0.9, that would be pesos, yes, or 9 pesos, 0.9 CDs. Not even less than 1 Ghana cedis. I don't know what you expect to get out of this. When you speak about it, they will say when you buy in bulk, it reduces the cost at the end of the day. But how can you feed somebody being with 1 CD or 2 CDs? And so, like you said earlier, this is affecting our children. And beyond the basic schools, it's even transcended into the secondary schools. We have seen the kind of food being fed to these our secondary school lads. And you see, even at that level, it becomes also critical because these are the stages that they need good food to be able to develop their strength into adulthood and to be able to take up the responsibilities of the future. If we are not able to do, I'm not sure anybody is putting a knife on our neck. Some of these things at the secondary level, I think, will be pushed more to the basic level to enhance what is supposed to be happening at the basic level. Because, of course, at the secondary school level, most, I'm not saying, oh, yes, the free SHS is of help to most of the people in the secondary school. But like we have long been talking about and JD has been talking about, let's look at this and review it. When you talk about review, and people will say that means cancellation, I don't know which lexicon gave them that understanding. But a review is a review. Ken Oforiatta himself, my friend, he's been given the sack. Said in the time past that let's allow people who can take care of their children in the secondary schools to do same. And those who cannot take care of their children should be taken care of. The most insensitive one is why somebody is a day student, you still have to feed him. Or why somebody equal to a day student is in the boarding house free, not paying rent, and still giving food for free. And so these are some of the things we want to look at, rationalize them, and make sure that if we have to pump more money into the basic level, we do that to enhance the IQ of our children at that level. We need to seriously have a dialogue, and we cannot pretend that all is well. We have to look at these things. And the earlier we do this, the better. We can't pretend to be hostages, burying our neck in the mud, and then our full body is shown or being shown outside.
Right.
And so let's do these things and make sure that we get something good out of them.
All right. So on that point, I have to add, and maybe I don't even know whether to mention the school, because sometimes you mention and then next thing you know, the leadership of that school is targeted, the headmaster, assistant are invited. But let me just say that a school very close to me, my heart, not close in proximity. And, you know, we've heard these stories from different places. You remember from last year, the buffer stock issues we had, or was it last 2 years? And institutions where there would be porridge without sugar and all of that, bread, and children had to. Recently, there was a caller who called here and made mention of same grade A school, Volta region. I'll not mention the name of the school, just to protect the headmaster and assistant. Maybe, and it's not that the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education do not know this. They know it. But this person called, and guess what? PTA, you know, engagements and all of that. Now their children are telling them that in this boarding house, right, when they serve you porridge, you must come with your own sugar and your own bread. Before you can enjoy the porridge. So if that's what's happening, then who knows what when they are served rice? Maybe they'll have to bring their own stew or shito. You know, I mean, back then in our day, even we felt, but the beans and you would have beans with some weevils but I mean, we got by. It was good. You would have your fish on certain days. You would have your stew, your kontomire. You would have your porridge, maybe Milo at another. I mean, it was good. It was good. Now, when you look at some of what they have to deal with, so look, we always say, and when we say it, people act like ostriches. They want to shy away from everything. But listen, free SHS. If we quantify, I see parents who are paying more than they would have paid, I believe, if things had been, because you look at the dynamics. So wait, if you're paying so much, then what is it? Now you have parents. I have some on my phone now. If anybody were to ask me, I'll show you. People have to literally buy bunkers because of the numbers. There's no bed for your ward, no bed for your child. You have to get a bunker. Buy a bunker, a bunk bed, basically, not a bunker, a bunk bed, and take it to the school. Now, when it comes to nutrition, and I don't get it, you want children to study. I've been through the mill. There's no way you can study, use your brain properly, if you are not getting proper nutrition. It's not going to happen. So you want them to study, yet even for porridge, cocoa or konomono, just or the no sichire and in the brodoba. I don't know.
Yeah, so Ben, that's the situation we have found ourselves in, and it's so unfortunate. And good you mentioned this Bishop Emma issue. I don't know whether you are aware I'm also a boo-boo.
I was trying to protect the leaders of the institution, and you brought it up. Eh?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about your case. I'm only talking about the school farming thing we used to do in Bishop Emma. You remember Saturdays, we go to the farm very early in the morning. We go and do the farming, the yam and other things we talk about. And you remember we were having beans as breakfast, remember?
Yes. Gobe.
So after the farm, you come and take beans as breakfast. And that was a heavy breakfast. And we were so delighted and happy about it. And it was so good. You see, it increased our nutrition and it made us so good in trying to go to our academics. We have a lot of schools with so much land. I speak as the past president of Sogasco Old Students Association. I was the national president. Sogasco has over 250 acres of land lying fallow. The school wants only somebody to provide them with a tractor so that they can plow at least about 100 acres and allow students to do this as pastime activity. Of course, it is high time we take agri away, or we don't push agri to the system as if it's a punishment to students, that if they want to punish you, they send you to the school farm. No, it should be a passion. It should be something all of us do. I remember Sogasco those times when we are going on holidays, because we have a piggery, we have a poultry, So during holidays, they kill the pigs for us, and then we feed the last day before we go home. And it was a sight to behold. We were expecting that, so nobody will go earlier until we have the lunch of pork. So once students know that there's a benefit to gain from the school farm, they will engage in it. So just provide tractor to the schools and allow them to farm themselves. Use the students, they will do it as pastime, so that even after school, some of them will take agri as a vocation. But we don't do this. The land are just there. People are encroaching on them, building on them every day, and then we continue to cry for food. And the people are there. We pretend to be feeding them, and they also pretend to be schooling. And at the end of the day, we go and buy past questions for them just to pass the exam. For us
on that last point about buying past questions for them, just so they'll pass. Past questions, well, even during our time, we went for past questions. It's not so much about any pass rate. It isn't. It's about what they can do, right? We like rote learning in this country. It's all about chew, pour, pass, forget. After you have compelled that person to go over these past questions, and they know that, a ruminant has 4 stomachs. I remember all those things. Omasum, abomasum, rectum, reticulum, and all of those things we studied back then. Yeah. After that, what's the application of it? What does it do to you? What does it? It's not so much about, look, a typical example, English and mathematics. Yeah. You go for, and I've gone for some of these aptitude tests in the past, and you see that people are struggling. They simply don't have the basics when it comes to mathematics, don't have the basics when it comes to logical thinking, don't have the basics when it comes to English. And so you see people at a certain level, and what they are doing So you ask yourself, what are we studying? What are we putting ourselves through? And a lot of my lecturer friends in universities keep complaining that the quality coming to them, I mean, some of them have to go back to some things before you can even continue with them in a first semester or even a second semester in first year university. That's my concern. It's not even so much about past questions and all of that. They are simply not meeting certain standards. And my fear, these are the same people who will become leaders of the future. What will they do for Ghana? These are the same people who have to go neck and neck, toe to toe with people in other jurisdictions. How will they fare? These are the people who will be expected to sign contracts for Ghana in the future. Will they even know what they're doing? I don't know.
Yeah, so my point actually is not about the past question, but so that government wants to look good in the eyes of the world, that they are producing students who have good grades, and for that matter, the thing is in them. That's my point. So that let's allow these people to naturally flow through the system. What we have to do to ensure that they have good feeding, we do. So that they have their IQs properly developed, we do. So that beyond the secondary school that we are forcing so much, I don't know why, maybe because of just the votes, because you see, beyond secondary school, these people would have attained 18 and they may be wanting to go to vote. For which reason somebody thinks that he wants to own them and that they will perpetually vote for him or her. And so these are the reasons why we do this. Most of them are crowded in political decisions. And it's not helping us as a people. Our children, my own daughter, have gone through the system. And like you said, every semester, at the end of every semester, I have to take extra classes and make sure they go through these things. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. So at the end of the day, it will be more than going through the natural system where they go to school at a particular time, stay for quite some time, they are taught properly, then they are promoted to the next day. Can you imagine that students coming to school for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then they go back home and go and stay for 3 months? So what are we doing to ourselves? We are just pretending to be giving free education to these students, and they are coming back with free brain, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. But let's get into some other stories. So over 118 hectares of forest reserves that have been degraded by illegal mining activities in some parts of the country are being reclaimed. Now, the reclamation exercise is ongoing at 7 sites in 3 forest reserves in the Ashanti and Western North regions under the $103 million World Bank funded Ghana Forest Investment Program. That's the banner story there in the Daily Graphic newspaper. And Koforidua, of course, is hosting the 67th Independence Day celebration. On the international front, African leaders gather in Ethiopia for AU summit. There's also Haiti working on agreement with Kenya for police deployment, and Arab League pushes for ceasefire resolution despite U.S. threats. Now, members of the Arab group say they have massive support, quote, among UN Security Council members to pass a draft resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Palestinian Ambassador Riyad Mansour said the impending Israeli military invasion of Rafah would, quote, depopulate the Gaza Strip, and urged council members to vote for the draft when it was advanced by Algeria. I support both sides in this matter, and I also feel when some of these countries that now would want to talk about this escalating situation, including even Egypt, we know the situation there, the UAE, Qatar, and others, when Hamas also did what it did, what was their posturing? I feel there's hypocrisy on both sides, sometimes the West, sometimes the Arab groupings themselves. But in the end, the blame game doesn't lead to anything. What we want is peace and the suffering to end. I don't know whether you have any quick thoughts, because then we can go into the Ghanaian Times and the Daily Guide newspaper. Any quick thoughts, or should I go on?
Yeah, so the forest reclamation is dear to my heart, because you see, these things go a long way to affect us. The climate change we are experiencing these days are due to this intentional destruction of our forest. You allow people to go to our forest to go and mine. Why? And after that, you go and spend $103 million trying to reclaim. Are we right up there? What are our policy makers thinking about? You allow people free rein to go and do these things, and you go back and look for money to come and do this, and then the money is left for our children to come and pay one day. I think that we are letting things too loose for my liking. We should be able to spend it. That doesn't mean that people don't know the essence of our forest in protecting us. Is that what it means? So why would we allow somebody mining concession to go to this very forest to go and mine, and then you come back, go and look for money to come and reclaim? If we are just living in a cyclical movement, People are just interested in money that will go into their pocket. For which reason, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry will give mining licenses to people to go into this forest to go and mine, and then we'll go and look for money again to come and read it. I really don't know what is wrong with that. I really don't know.
Right. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, State Attorney lands in hot water, debarred by General Legal Counsel over 400,000 Ghana cedis of Woyome money. I started seeing the story from yesterday. Speaker rallies MPs to promote Ghanaian languages, culture and dressing. I see you often in your Batakari and others. I think you would fit right into the speaker's good books. As far as that, you remember there was this talk in the past about using Ghanaian attire and all of that. On that note, you would have to give commendation to the Nigerians and their presidents, among others. They're always, almost always, in there. It's our leaders who like the suits and everything. I always say that on this show, everyone knows me. Those who know me before I came here. If I had my way, and that's why I always look forward to Ghana Month, because it's going to be African prints throughout. But now, sometimes you have to be careful when you say African prints, because sometimes the prints are not even made in Africa. Then, shoddy work renders 3 One Village, One Dam projects ineffective in the Upper East region. That's according to the WRC. So let me quickly get into that. Oh, and there's 2 prison wardens handed over to police following escape of Chinese inmate. Do you remember that story? A Chinese inmate, he evaporated into thin air. I have a doctor friend who got in touch with me on this matter. Ghana, eh? Anyway, so let me just do this one, and then you can come in. I just want to get details of this story. Then the rest you can just share your quick reflections on them. So, at least 3 dams constructed under the One Village, One Dam policy in the Upper East region are unable to provide an all-year-round water supply for both domestic and agricultural purposes due to shoddy works by the contractors, the Water Resources Commission has revealed. Now, according to a WRC researcher, Dr. Joan Akandi Atule, the 3 dams, namely Vunania Dam in Navrongo, Gia and Duo dams in Bongo, dried up soon after the raining season ended. As a result of the defects, water leaks through them, making it impossible to serve their purpose. Quick reflections.
Yeah, sure. So the state actor is unfortunate that someone Nikwetete has found himself in this hot soup. I think that this thing should continue. And when people misconduct themselves, whether it takes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they should be brought to book. So that this would deter other people from willfully doing some of these things against their own state. To go and connive with somebody to due the state of so much money, $51 million, I think it's unfortunate. And so any of those people found directly linked to these things, yes, of course, if we have to go after them, we do. It is only serving as a deterrent for most people who may also in the future want to think along same lines. I think that it's unfortunate. The One Village, One Dam, I don't know whether we still want to call it a dam because it's a dugout. The minister herself, Howard Kumsi, admitted that the amount of money that was allocated for the construction of these things is not something they can use to construct a dam. So it was a waste of our resources going to use that money to share to party apparatchiks to go and just clear some portion of the land, use excavator or even a grader to just clear it, and then they call it a dam, they take the money and they walk away. Some of these things should not just be spoken about, but if really they think that somebody did a shoddy job, then they have to go after the person. But we speak about these things and it is gone and there's nothing done and it's business as usual. The next another person is giving same contract, he also go and do whatever he likes, walk away knowing that nobody will come and hold him responsible at the end of the day. These are some of the ills we are finding in this government, and many people have spoken against it and will continue to talk about it, but it looks like nobody cares about it. I think that we should go further to buy and to ensure that if it is the contractor who was given some amount of money, who has not been able to execute to standard, where our engineers and then our regulatory bodies, every contract that is given, you have an agency that will be responsible for the monitoring and the evaluation. So what happened to this? As for the prison wardens, you allow 2 Chinese to just escape into thin air. It is because when these things happen, nobody is properly punished. So he takes some money, allow the people to go, they arrest him 1 month, 2 months, he stays in prison.
Well, they've been handed over to the police, so let's leave the police to do its work in that regard. We'll see what happens.
My point is that the punishment should be deterrent enough so that going forward, people will look at this and refrain from willfully causing this. Are we saying that these people slept off or whatever, and then people just walked away?
Well, that's why I'm saying that we'll leave the police to get into that. We have to go in about a minute and a half, so let me quickly do this. Daily Guide, Ghana-Zambia strengthen trade investment ties. Works Housing Ministry honors Hackman. Top lawyer disbarred over Woyome 400,000 Ghana cedis. Afenyo arrests passage of anti-gay bill, and AG signs International Crimes Convention. In fact, the Afenyo issue is also on page 4 of the New Finder. Anti-LGBTQ bill goes through second consideration stage following Afenyo Markin's motion. I don't know what your take is on that. And the other bit that maybe I'd like you to talk about, cheap funds to private sector expenditure cuts will salvage economy. That's according to Dr. Etiahene. Cheap funds to private sector expenditure cuts will salvage economy. You have a minute and then we can go.
Yeah, sure. So, Afenyo Markin, I am not too sure, even though he has said that he's practically not against the bill.
Right.
The action and inaction of some of the people is not too clear whether they are really against the bill or they are for it. And so they go and they come back. They go and they come back. You know,
when the speaker called some time back, I believe it was last year, anyone who was against, did you see any MP stand up? No one stood up. So no, I think it's concluded.
So that's what I'm saying, that behind the scenes they do something. The last I read,
behind the scenes, who does something? Who?
You want me to mention this?
Well, if you know something we don't, I don't know, but you might want to watch it on the legal angle.
Afenyo Markin, they have gone through this bill on several occasions. They've gone through the second reading, now they're going for the third reading and sending them back. They have gone through and it's been rejected. So for me, let's allow these things to go through. Our former President Mahama has completely and flawlessly stated that he's against it. Let's hear other people talk about these things and let's move on. Let's hear other people talk about them.
All right. Maxwell, we have to go. We're grateful for your time this morning. Lovely Batakari, by the way, and the matching headpiece. Maxwell Lukuto is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tone. He joined the conversation.